just welcome if you're new here. I'm Carmen Fourie. I'm an employment relations practitioner, but I'm all about sustainable and intentional living. So today's video is about preconception, what it means to us, and what we did. Alright, couple of things before I jump into the heart of today's topic. The first thing I want to do is address I think a misperception, or I have received comments about this. I've been quite open about our preconception journey on Instagram, and I sometimes got DMs or messages around people reminding me that I'm not able to control everything. I completely respect that those messages came from a place of care, but I also do want to address the way that I see preconception and how it is not about control for me. So here's the thing, preconception, or at least my preconception journey or our preconception journey, has not been about control. It has been about being intentional about our reproductive health, as well as our decision to become parents and what that might mean to us, why we're doing it, and what our approach to parenting will be when we get there. Narrowing it down to the actual conception part of preconception, I really share a lot of the fears that other women have around infertility, around things not working out the way that we would want them to work out. I think I've been quite open about the fears that I had, and I've sat with my fears and have processed my fears. But here's the thing, preconception planning is about really doing what we can that is within our control to improve our chances of firstly conceiving, but then also having a healthy pregnancy, and then a healthy baby, and a healthy, or as best as possible, postpartum. Now those are the ideals. None of what we do guarantees any of that. Our efforts are to enhance the possibility of that and really do what we can to contribute to that. But we are not naive in thinking that because we've done all these things, the stars will align and everything will work out the way that we would want it to. In my nearly 30 years of life, I've definitely seen that I can plan and things happen. And then when I get to that point and when things happen that I didn't necessarily wish for or want, I can address them when they come about. And this journey is no different. It is a really big responsibility to choose to conceive, to become a parent, and we wanted to do that with a lot of intention and do it from a conscious place of really giving it, I want to say, our all, but we did do quite a lot, as you will see in this video. So here's the thing, yes, things can go wrong. Yes, maybe it's not gonna happen for us. Maybe it takes really long. Maybe there are complications that we've never heard of and never thought of. And that is the reality of it. But that's been true for most of the things that I've done in my life. They can go wrong. Things do happen that I never imagined and never wanted. And if they do happen, when we get there, we will do our best to deal with that from a place of being intentional about that as well. But never in my life did I stop planning or stop dreaming or stop working towards something just because there's a chance that maybe it won't work out. And that is where I'm at with the conception journey and what my approach has been to it all along. Alright, so that's what I wanted to say, because I realized that those messages came from a wonderful and beautiful place, mostly I assume of caring about me and being worried about me. And I just want to let you know that if I am disappointed and if I'm hurt, that's okay. I will be able to deal with my disappointment and hurt, and life has its ups and downs, and I want to be present for all of it. And I don't want to steal my own joy by not embarking on this preconception journey with the intention that I try to live all of my life with. So what is preconception planning and what does it mean to us? I'm not going to ramble off like the definition of it. I don't actually even know what the proper definition is. I just know what it means to me and to us. So what preconception planning is to us is it is being intentional and doing what we can to promote our firstly chances of conception, but being intentional about conception as well. So I'll get to that in this video, how we would like to be very intentional around the actual time when we start that journey. But also what our goal is with this is to really focus on having a healthy pregnancy or doing everything that we can to promote having a healthy pregnancy, having the type of birth that we really want to have, and enhancing or at least making the healing of postpartum on a physical and an emotional level one as kind of best or as soft as we possibly can. For us, a main driving factor, of course, is conception, the pregnancy, the birth, but also to create a as healthy as possible baby as we can. And then I think we possibly took it a level further. So I think with preconception planning, some people might choose to only do the things that enhance your physical well-being. We also did, and I think a lot of people do this as well, did a lot of intentional effort to enhance our mental and our emotional state, where we were at with the choice that we were making, and I'll detail all the things we did in a moment. But then the final one, and I'm really not sure how many people do this one, I'd be interested to know, but I haven't really come across many people who have been this intentional about this last one, and that is being really intentional about our approach to parenting and really predetermining how we would like to approach parenting. And that's the final one, that even if our conception or making a baby doesn't work out, we can become parents in other ways. So that one for us was really crucial about preparing for us being in the best place that we can to give our best to our future child or children. All right, so now I'm going to take you through what we have done around preconception planning. There's a lot, so I'm kind of going to list them off really quickly and not go into major detail about any of them. So if you do want specific videos or more information on any of them, please let me know in the comments below. Before I do that, I really would like to just put 2 disclaimers in place, and then I promise I'm gonna get straight into the list. So disclaimer number 1, a lot of the things that we did, we would have done irrespective of whether we wanted to be parents or not. And that is because we also are very intentional about the quality of life that we live. So a lot of the things around our health and our well-being we probably would have done irrespective of whether or not we wanted to be parents. And it's very difficult to differentiate between, you know, which were done explicitly for preconception and which were just done to enhance the general quality of our life, because for us they're very intertwined, because very early on in our relationship we did decide, or we were quite explicit about how we wanted to be parents. And a lot of, we kind of always spoke about, when we speak about enhancing our quality of life, there's always a part of that conversation has been whatever children we bring into this world. I can't really differentiate for you, you know, which of them, but some of them were definitely just done with general quality of life in mind and not explicitly or only for preconception. Disclaimer number 2, and this one is really important to me, so I kind of really hope I do it justice, but I have no intention to contribute to a world of confusion or the culture of never enough or competitiveness or anything like that. Anything that I say that we did, I'm not saying that anybody else who chose not to do those things is doing it wrong, or I don't have any judgments around people who choose not to do the things that we did, because I can't possibly say whether what's right for us is right for you or for anybody else. And our circumstances are so different from other people's circumstances, so I wouldn't be in a place to give anybody advice or make any judgments about what other people should have done with their journeys. So I just want to say that I respect that everybody's journey looks different, and nothing in this video is me trying to tell other people what they should or shouldn't be doing. I want to share what we did because I found value in other people sharing what they did, and I could take from those videos or from those posts the things that resonated with me, and the things that I didn't understand I could look into more, and that's my hope with this video. I'm going to share what we did, but please take what serves you and just leave what doesn't serve you. And just when I refer to health, people have different definitions of what is healthy, and just so you know what my frame of reference is, we choose a sort of pro-metabolic, Peat inspired approach to health, very natural living. So that is health to us. Again, I'm not saying anybody else should decide that that is health to them. That's just what we have decided works best for us. All right, now I'm gonna get straight into the list of what we did, and it is a lot, so I'm gonna ramble it off, and I'm gonna start with the most obvious ones first. So a lot of people only got to know me after I started my Instagram, which was give or take about 3 years ago. And what they wouldn't know about me is that I used to smoke. Anyway, so the first thing that I did on my health journey was I quit smoking. That was at the beginning of 2018. Specifically, it was around the end of February 2018. I don't remember the exact date. It was probably one of the most challenging things in my health journey. If you want to know more about it, or you want me to make a video about that specific part of it, then just comment below and I will do so. But yeah, it was not an easy part, but that was where I started. That was for me the biggest one that I could do. Right, then step number 2 was I left my birth control pill. That I also did in 2018. I think it was in May of 2018. It was actually very shortly after I had stopped smoking. Being on the pill and smoking are probably 2 of my biggest regrets. There's nothing that I can do about the fact that I did those things now, but I definitely know that I regret having done both of those things. So I was on Yaz, and I was on Yaz for nearly 6 years. In hindsight, it was obviously a really terrible idea since Yaz has been linked to blood clots. I'll put a link for that below so you don't have to take my word for it, but that is also aggravated if somebody does smoke. And I was smoking and taking Yaz. So yeah, in hindsight, not a great idea from my side, but there's nothing that I can do about it, and I worked really hard to try to undo any of the damage that I had done by those choices. All right, then step number 3 was also a really big one, so I did all the really big ones first. And that is that I stopped processed food, specifically no more fast food and no more takeout. I can remember the exact final order of takeout that I had. I didn't know at the time that it would be my final one, but I remember just feeling so horrible afterwards that I decided I'm done. And if you did know me prior to my health and sustainability journey, I pretty much lived off of fast food for many years of my life. And that I stopped in May of 2018. So I have not had fast food from going from somebody who ate fast food probably 3 to 5 times a week. I know that's embarrassing, but yeah, to none whatsoever these last years. That was a biggie. Then step number 4, or fourth thing that I did, and this one has been an ongoing one, so it wasn't like the other ones where I just stopped doing this. This one was a journey, and I make a lot of videos about this one. And that is that I switched from conventional products in my home and that I use on my body to natural, eco-friendly, and products with ingredients in that I feel comfortable to use on my body, that I believe do not disrupt my hormones and do not contribute to any issues that I might be having. Big ones would be like parabens and aluminium and those kind of things in products. So that's been a long journey, but I think pretty much most of my products now are natural or with only very safe synthetics in them. I'm not going to go into the detail of the products that I used. Like I said, I make videos about that, but one of the big ones for preconception was that I stopped using conventional tampons and pads. I use a menstrual cup and reusable pads and panties. All right, now I'm going to stop doing them in order because I don't remember. After those ones, the rest of them just kind of started happening alongside each other, and they were continuous journeys. They weren't once-off things, so I'm just going to continue to list them, but these are not in order. On the front of food is, like I said, I cut out takeaway. That was a big one, and I started doing home-cooked meals. But then I moved to very natural eating, and what that means is all of my fruits and veg are organic. I try to minimize my exposure to any pesticides or any harsh chemicals in the way that they were farmed. That comes again from an environmental perspective, but also from a health perspective. All of my animal products that I eat are from pasture raised, grass-fed, not grain-fed, routine hormone-free, that was a big one, growth hormone-free, and from sustainable farms in the area. So I am very particular about where I source my food from. That was an ongoing journey in the beginning, but now I already know where I source all of my food from. That ensures that it meets my values for my environmental impact, but also from a health perspective. So the whole intention behind that one was to enhance the general quality of my food, which I have done. Then on the food front, I'm not going to go into the history of our journey with health or our choice of health in this video. If you're interested, I will make a video about that in future. But we chose pro-metabolic, kind of Peat inspired health choice. It's quite a lot for me to try narrow it down, but the big things is that we limit our exposure to polyunsaturated fat and we focus on eating very nutrient dense food to feed the body. And what is great with that stuff is that it is very much geared towards focusing on health and well-being and hormonal health and all of those things. So perfectly aligns to our preconception journey. All right, then there was one that is more of like our emotional / trauma work. I was in a few car accidents and one of them, or maybe all of them, but one in particular just left a lot of tension in my body, and I developed like a trigger finger and other issues. So for a long time I would go see a physio, firstly weekly and then every second week and then once a month, to learn to not store that tension in my body. I also did breath work and I did a lot of yoga and a lot of just work on letting go of incidences that have happened where I was storing that tension that was having an impact on both my just general well-being, but actually also my physical state. Okay, this is one that I don't really know like how to say what it is or what name to give it, but at the beginning of 2020 I was still suffering quite hectically with PMS. So bear in mind that I went off the pill around May of 2018. I felt like I was doing a lot and I couldn't really understand why I was still having quite intense PMS. So I went to a gynecologist, as I had done every year or every second year since I turned 18, I think, or maybe from when I was 20, one of those two, but I'd always gone every year, every second year. Gynecologist said everything looks fine, didn't really answer any of the questions or concerns that I had in a way that helps me to do anything with that information. It was just like, it looks fine, there's no causes for concern. And then again, I was prescribed the pill. I said no thank you, and then the response was some version of, you know, well, it's that or suffering. And anyway, so I left that appointment being very depressed, and I just happened to be talking to my cousin on the way back and she recommended In the Flow. And although I had been kind of tracking my cycle on an app, so, and I wouldn't recommend that, but that again is a video for another day. I don't recommend using the app as a way to prevent pregnancy. But anyway, I had been doing the whole app thing and more, so I was not reliant on that to prevent pregnancy. But anyway, once I had read In the Flow, because I was so desperate that day and I was so negative about the appointment that I had just had, that I immediately got In the Flow on Audible and started listening to it. And it just changed my mindset completely towards my period and my cycle. So I don't follow any of the nutritional or food advice that is in the Flow. Like I said, I do pro-metabolic stuff, so it is a bit different to what's in the Flow, but the general concept and understanding, getting excited about my cycle came from that book. Then at the same time, I also read PMS to Menopause by Dr. Peat, and that gave me a lot of insight from a health perspective as to what I can do to improve my PMS and my sort of general hormonal health. Both of those books led to what I do every single day now, and I have posted it on my social media every single day, is I journal. I journal my cycle day, my temperature. I'm not going to go into everything I journal in this video, but my emotional state, my concentration levels, my cervical fluid, my levels of bloating, any symptoms whatsoever that could possibly give me an indication of my health, my well-being, and my cycle. I started doing that at the beginning of 2020 and I've done it every single day since then. That is when I really started actively learning about fertility awareness method. And although I was quite comfortable with my understanding of the fertility awareness method a few months ago, I did buy this book and I have recently finished most of it. I just skipped the parts that are currently not applicable to my life. And while I did have a very good understanding reading this book, it was just really nice to get some additional understanding of certain things that I feel like I have a really holistic perspective on now. So while reading this book, I would do lots of other things like take LH tests, not really the way other people would, where they'd buy like the whole pack and then take them every day to see. I would kind of see my primary and secondary ovulation symptoms and then take the LH test to kind of substantiate what I was already understanding about my body. As I went through that, like I said, I literally posted that on my stories to Instagram every single day, and I continue to do so. So if you are interested in that, you're welcome to check out my Instagram. Through doing that, I got a very strong understanding of my cycle, and also I could see whether or not my efforts were improving my PMS or not. And I'm very happy to report that I have had many months of cycles without any major PMS. No pain pulls was necessary for me to get through my period, which was amazing, because that was something I had kind of never thought possible, but that's where we are now. And I think journaling really just helped me to be intentional about that, and also know what was working and know what isn't working. And I will continue to do that for, yeah, as long as it serves me, which is kind of right now seems like always. So I know exactly more than a year's worth of trends on more or less when I ovulate. I have only had one cycle with a delayed ovulation, and I knew before the time that it was going to be delayed, which was pretty cool. And then I could confirm that I actually did ovulate. I know exactly how long my luteal phase is. That is to say, I know how many days I have between ovulation and when menstruation starts for me. I know exactly what my primary and secondary symptoms are and what I can expect to happen in the different phases of my cycle. So I live in sync with my cycle, and it's just really wonderful to have that understanding. So that was a major one to do with preconception, because firstly, it was a thing that we were using to prevent pregnancy, but also it's the thing that we will use to enhance conception. Okay, and then another one was alcohol. So a lot of people stop drinking when they decide that they want to conceive. Given that we didn't know exactly when we wanted to start our conception journey, we just knew we wanted to be in a better all-round space. Also in 2020, at the beginning of lockdown, I just decided to stop drinking because I hadn't really in my adult life gone through a time where I didn't socially drink. So I just decided that I'm gonna give it a go. And I stopped drinking alcohol, I think it was for 5 months. And since then I do sometimes consume alcohol, but very seldomly, and definitely not the way that I used to anymore. Then another one is medication. I wanted to get to a place where I no longer needed any of the chronic medication that I was taking, and I wanted as little as possible to need to take any pain medication. So I'm very prone to migraines and headaches, and I have and continue to do a lot to prevent me from getting those. And I can say that there's been a significant improvement in that, which is really great. So I will only turn to medication when really necessary, but I no longer take any chronic medication whatsoever. Next one is we built a community of people, and that sounds crazy because obviously we do have friends and we've got family and we already have a community, but it was quite important to share this journey or to find other people who were interested in the same thing. So a lot of that I did via social media. I came to meet people who live in my area or abroad that are very much interested in pro-metabolic way of eating or approaching health, as well as even the general concept of preconception. So now I do have friends, which I never had before, who do not want to have children right now, but are extremely aware and conscious around the choices that they're making now for their health, for their well-being, and just the types of parents that they want to be. And it just was amazing to be able to chat to people who are interested in that stuff. I think I still drove my friends and family who are maybe not explicitly interested in that stuff a little crazy talking about it as well. And they definitely listened, I think because they care about me, not so much because they care about the topic that I was sharing. But yeah, we've built a community of people who share similar interests and similar outlooks, which is just so amazing, because embarking on this, I didn't know a lot of people who plan the way that we do. And often I would get questions like, why would you want to do that? This is something you can't control. And I get those questions, but it's also really nice to sometimes hang out with people and bond and connect with people who immediately understand and who are also doing it, and then we can bounce ideas and discuss it. So that's been really great, and I just slot that one under like just building a community of people who also are interested in preconception. All right, then a big one is sleep. So I was an insomniac, or probably am still, for most of my life, even from when I was a baby, as my parents tell me, a teenager, you name it, I have struggled to sleep at night. And one of my main health goals was to get 8 hours of sleep and to not have such anxiety around when I go to bed, because I would lie awake for hours on end. And I'm very happy to report that came right actually quite early on in my health journey. And there are some nights that I still struggle with, but they are, you know, 1 or 2 nights in a month, as opposed to where I used to only have good sleep 1 or 2 nights in a month. So I get a minimum of 8 hours sleep every night, and it is quality sleep. It isn't like broken sleep, it is genuine quality sleep. Okay, now on to just a couple of things that my husband did, because I'm making this video for me, but he also did a lot of things, and I'm just going to kind of summarize them. My husband Ian has always been into health for quite a long time, but anyway, he has not had alcohol, I think it's 4 or 5 years now, at all. He doesn't drink any alcohol. He's never smoked, and he hasn't had takeout or fast food in many years as well, and he's always been very health conscious. When I told him I was making this video, one of the things that he pointed out that was probably his biggest thing that he did that has contributed just to his general well-being, but also our home and our preconception journey, was stress management, and just focusing on his state and being calm and grounded, and to prevent external stresses, but then when they come about, to deal with them in the most effective way possible. And I'm just also mentioning that because I think that there's this perception, I definitely had it, so it took me to read it several times from various sources to really kind of get it in my mind, is that when there are fertility issues, it is a 50-50 whether it's going to be the woman or the man in the conception journey. And often when people go into conception journey, the focus is on what the woman has done, but it's not just that. It is a 2-person journey, and we've really approached it as a 2-person journey, with both of us taking responsibility for bringing our best selves to our relationship and to our, I guess, preconception planning, but we talk about it a lot. And that brings me to the point of what we did as a couple. Just like everything else in our lives, we approach it with a lot of intention. I have read countless relationship books. We did a relationship course more than a year before I think almost a year before we decided even to get married. We have both very much incorporated nonviolent communication in our lives. Both of us have done nonviolent communication courses, and we apply those principles in our home to ensure that the way that we relate to each other is from a vulnerable, conscious, and compassionate space. I'm also very interested in the work of Esther Perel, which is solely focused on couples, and we continue to put things in our toolbox to enhance us, because we see the parenting journey as, firstly, we do what we can as an individual to bring our best selves to the relationship, but also we see it as we parent from a place of being a couple and being a team and doing it together. So therefore our communication and what we role model to any little human that we bring into the world is just very important to us. So we continuously work on our communication, and it's really hard to rewire old patterns. I mean, we haven't even been together that long, but we had some patterns of doing things, old habits that we've brought, you know, just from our general lives. And it's taken a long time to change up the way that we relate to each other and our communication and build on that. So that was one of the big factors that we actually pushed out. Our time frame for entering into conception journey was because we really wanted to work on those things. What we've realized is we're not really going to get to a point where like, oh, it's amazing now, we're exactly where we want to be with this. Or maybe we will, I guess, I'm not sure. But right now we just recognize that that's going to be an ongoing journey, and there's not necessarily a point that we get to where we feel, okay, we're in a perfect space as a couple. Like, we continuously learn and grow, but we've definitely embodied all of the values that we wanted to in terms of nonviolent communication and the way that we relate to each other. A big part of that also is that we spend a great deal of time discussing our approaches to parenting and really even nitty-gritty technicalities that maybe a lot of people don't even think about before becoming parents. I'm not sure, maybe other people are also as intentional as we are. But we have spent a long time building a shared approach to parenting that both of us really believe in, that both of us want to do. So I started, and this is part of the preconception planning, is that I looked into parenting stuff many months ago already. I have purchased parenting books. I'm on the brink of purchasing a toddler course, but it is just so beautiful for me. The principles, even though it's technically for toddlers, I think just having those principles aligns with the way that we want to parent, which is, I think the name for it would be respectful, conscious parenting. So I follow a lot of people on social media who incorporate this, and I continuously learn. And we chose that we didn't want to be reactive in the way that we were with parenting. We didn't want to get to a phase and then suddenly be like, okay, how do we deal with this? I mean, that's probably going to happen still, but we really wanted to be on board and have a shared approach to parenting and know where our strengths lie, where we will lean on each other, or who's kind of maybe the stronger one in that realm and things like that. So we spend a great deal of time. It's not like talking about it where you kind of just dream about it. It's really like, oh, I read this, will you engage in this article? And we discuss it. We talk about the practicalities of it, and we've spoken to other friends and other people about these things that we want to implement that are slightly unconventional, and therefore I definitely think there is a need for both of us to be on the same page. All right then, and then I guess the final one to just kind of close all of the other ones was our continuous work that we do in terms of our preconceived notions about the world and just doing things the way that everybody else has always done them. We really like to ask why and look into it. And the beauty of doing that when we are in the preconception phase as opposed to the conception phase is it's much easier to engage with the literature from a non-triggered state, from a much calmer state. So I engaged with all of the fears that I had around pregnancy and birth and medical interventions that come about and various choices that people make of which practitioners to turn to. I did prior to, you know, us even having a date of when we would enter a conception journey, and I shared them with Ian and we discussed them at length because I could engage in that material from a space of, I'm not going through it right now. I'm not in a stressed state of having to deal with it now. Of course, I think anybody can still do it once you've entered that journey. I just thought that it would be easier to do it in my preconception journey. So that includes things around, you know, conception and pregnancy and birth and postpartum, but it also included things around ideas of parenting. In the description box below, I'm going to link some Instagrams or some people who I think are just our kind of role models right now for the parenting approach that we would like to implement and that we're really excited to bring about. But none of that happens easily. We have had many years of seeing people parent, we have been parented, and we've lived in a society where we see TV shows of how it's supposed to go, and I think we just had a lot of ideas of what it looks like. We don't necessarily want to parent that way, and it takes a lot of effort to engage with something from a different space and then really embody that rather than it just making cognitive sense, but then we go into old habits, and we spent a great deal of time rewiring a lot of habits or the ways that we looked at things. And continuously we try to lower stress and anxiety and build a calm and grounded household, not one that suppresses feelings. Feelings are very welcome in our home, but one that moves away from blame language and harsh judgments to one where we have empathy and compassion for each other and everybody else who comes into our home. But those things I really believe take time to implement and rewire, and we continuously do that. And that concludes today's video. Sorry that I rambled everything off so quickly, but like I said, if you want to know more about any of the individual facets, comment down below and then I'll know to make a video about that. If you want to continue to see what I do pretty much on a daily basis, since I told you I post every single day my temperature and my cycle day, or if you are curious as to when we will be entering our conception phase, then follow my Instagram. I've linked that down below. I probably forgot some stuff that we did, but anyway, that was a very long list of what preconception is to us and all of the various things that we have done over the last 3 years to try to be as health conscious, environmentally conscious, and just generally intentional about the future time when we will enter into conception and parenting. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, please go ahead and like it. And if you want to see more videos about intentional living, eco-friendly living, pro-metabolic health stuff, and more, subscribe to my channel.